Are we live, Matt? Okay, right. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the GRAC meeting on Tuesday, the 8th of March. Apologies for the fact we had to change the timing from our normal 2 o'clock to 10 o'clock this morning for various reasons. Right, first of all, apologies for absence.
Yes, we have apologies from Councillor Pierre Butikofer.
Substitute?
Yeah, we have Councillor Paul Heinrich.
Thank you for that. Thank you, Paul. Item number 3 is public questions. I do have a question to read out, which I'm proposing to do straight away. The question was... They're not here. I'm still going to read it. Yeah, sorry. Yep, sorry about that. Okay, the statement is read. It's on behalf of Councillor Liz Withington, who unfortunately is still suffering from quite some illness and is unable to attend the chamber. And she's asked me if I would read this statement out. And it would simply say that I would like to clarify at the meeting of GRAC on the 9th of March 2021 in regard to the audit of the Cromer Tennis Hub project. I was asking a process question to ensure that NNDC's new project framework processes were robust and fit for purpose. There was no intention on my part to damage Councillor Judy Oliver's reputation. I am saddened if she felt this was the case. From Councillor Liz Withington. Thank you for that. Right, item 4. On the agenda, I need to just read a statement which is actually printed in the agenda, but just so that for people that haven't got copies of it or that are joining us on YouTube, is that the council received the Ernst & Young annual audit letter and annual audit results report for the 2019-2020 early on the afternoon of Thursday, the 24th of February 22. Leaving insufficient time for the authority to properly consider issues arising in the report and in preparing a management response. We are therefore proposing to hold an additional meeting of the Governance, Risk and Audit Committee provisionally on the morning of Wednesday, the 30th of March, to consider the following items of business. Annual Audit Letter 2019-20, Annual Audit Results Report 2019-20, and the adoption of the final accounts for 19-20-20. That's fine. Thank you very much. Right.
John, sorry, can I just ask, that's provisional or is that a confirmed?
It's provisional. It's still provisional.
Okay.
Will be confirmed as soon as we can, but it'll be fairly quick there. Is that okay? I appreciate you've got other things, but we will get back to you as soon as we can on
Thank
that.
you.
But rather than put nothing, we needed to put something.
Yep.
Thank you. Okay, item number 5, declarations of interest. Anybody? There is references on our agenda on pages 1 to 6. And anybody that has any declarations to declare? No, thank you very much. Okay, item number 6 are the minutes of the meeting from the 7th of December 2021. I will just run through them if anybody has any comments. Page 1 at the front, they're not numbered, but never mind. Page 2. Page 3. Page 4. Page 5. Can I just ask on page 5, item number 3, 111, the monitoring officer to consider whether there was any legal implications for officers not being allowed to review the existing contract?
I did go back to which
This is in the minutes. 3, sorry, yeah.
Yes, I did go back to a member of the legal team and liaise with the finance officers as well. And there are no outstanding issues with that.
So they're not allowed to see, the question was whether they were allowed to see the contracts before we signed them.
All right, I don't think that was the particular question that I was thinking about. There was another issue I took to them. I will go and double check that.
Okay, it's just that I believe we're right, are we, Duncan, that normally you don't see sight of it before it's signed. That's what Lucy was, am I correct in that?
Yeah, I think that's been one of the challenges in the past, that we haven't had full transparent access to that contract before you have to sign up for it. So that's something as local government as a whole has been pushing for with the new contract.
Okay, so we just wondered what the legal implication was. Is that okay?
Yeah, I have made some provisional queries about that, but I don't have the final result.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you very much. Anything else on that page? Page, whatever number on next. Nothing on there. Nothing on the back. Okay, any questions? Can I have a proposer, please? Councillor Braithwaite, and a seconder, Councillor Fisher. Thank you very much. I will sign those. Okay, right. So item number 7, progress internal audit reports from Faye.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, you're with me for the next few agenda items. Here we go. The first one on the list is progress report. You've had this report in this format a number of times, so I'm going to take you straight to the key points. At section 2.1, we talk about any significant changes made to the agreed plan that was agreed on the 15th of June 2021. We have made one change at the request of management. Economic growth has been deferred into 22-23, and you'll see that later on the agenda in the audit plan, so we can discuss further there. At section 3, we've got progress made in delivering the agreed audit work. I'm very pleased to report that 124 days have now been completed, and we're sitting at about 78% of the audit plan for 21-22. As of the paper deadline last week. That's moved on a little bit further since then too. So we're definitely catching up from the delays that we experienced earlier in the year, and there's plenty of work for us to discuss in this audit report this time. So at section 4.4, we've got the internal audit reports listed there that we've been able to finalise, and we've got accounts receivable, which is a substantial, customer services, again, substantial, the project management framework, reasonable, annual governance statement, reasonable, COVID-19 business grants, reasonable, environmental health, reasonable, and accountancy services, substantial. So no limited and no assurance reports to report to you this time. 26 audit recommendations have been raised in total and agreed by management, and a little bit of a performance update is provided at 5.3 on page 20, just to say that we are happy with progress made to date. We're catching up again from 2 and 3, and I continue to work closely with the contractor to ensure that all the work is completed for the annual internal audit opinion. Appendix 1 on page 21 gives you that visually, looks at each of the status updates for those reports, and then provides the recommendation numbers in each category. And then Appendix 2 gives you the executive summaries of all of those audit reports that we've been able to finalise. So the first two, obviously substantial, no significant issues to highlight to you there. The assurance review of the project management framework on page 28. This is the piece of work where we've taken all of the project related recommendations that we raised over the last couple of years. Nikki Cox, our auditor, has gone in and looked at what the progress is to date on those. We've been able to sign off quite a few, as you'll see from the executive summary. 2 new control areas and recommendations have been raised, but this gives you an idea of where we are in terms of delivering those audit recommendations that we raised as part of the project management piece of work, the Sheringham project work, and Chroma Tennis Hub reviews. So I think it's definitely heading in the right direction, and you can see from page 32 all of those recommendations that we now have evidence to suggest we can close. So it's still work in progress, but it's definitely a much improved situation, and we'll continue to monitor these recommendations as part of our follow-up report that we provide to you in every agenda pack. So the next audit report is the annual governance statement, and just one important recommendation is raised there in relation to the self-assessment process, just to summarise that within the annual governance statement and cross-reference that to the action plan. On page 39, you've got the COVID business grants. So I think this is a fantastic result, considering that £120.6 million worth of grants have gone out of the door, 28,000, nearly 29,000 businesses supported by these. We were also informed after the finalisation of the report that North Norfolk has received an award for its exceptional performance in issuing grants. So I think that all gives you a picture of a really good control framework in that regard. These recommendations that we have raised are in relation to tightening up some of those post-assurance plans, and it's retrospective work that the management team have agreed to take on. They also need to be considered in light of future grants, but in terms of the result itself, given the amounts that have gone out of the door, I think this is hugely positive. Environmental health is on page 42, and we've got 3 recommendations there. Again, that one about the licence registers, which we know is in hand and is provided on the follow-up report next on the agenda. Licence fee income to be reconciled regularly, and food hygiene inspections of businesses to be conducted in a timely manner. And work is ongoing in that regard, but to formalise the time frame on that, we've added a recommendation. The last one there, I'll take a breath at this point, is accountancy services, and that again substantial with one needs attention recommendation. So overall, the control framework is looking very healthy at this point in time in the year. Thank you.
Right, thank you, Faye. Okay, question time. I have a couple, but if someone wants to go off first, you're welcome. Christopher, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A question, thanks, Faye, for that. That's very helpful. Probably sort of some more generic questions. If I go to page 30, and there are a list of project management recommendations there, and I think we go on further and report there are other recommendations, particularly around environmental health. Some of those issues seem to be in there a long time. I'm just wondering, 2 questions really. Would it be helpful to state in the report when the issues were identified, so we have an indication of how long they've been sitting there? Because that would help us, I think, monitor in terms of what the question that comes to the next question is, well, why hasn't somebody done something about it? Look at project management ones, look at the project management ones, for example, they don't look like they're particularly difficult actions to actually tackle. So if they're sitting there from one meeting to the next, begs the question why somebody hasn't got in their objectives to do something about it.
Thank you for that comment. So what we've done as part of the follow-up report next on the agenda is to actually give you the number of times that a recommendation has been, the deadline on that has moved. And I think I've said this before in relation to the project management work. Whilst it may look like quite a simple recommendation to resolve, we won't sign these off until we've got evidence to demonstrate that that control is working effectively. And that's where we're coming up to, as a, you know, there's a bit of a delay in there, because producing the evidence to say not only is this in hand, but it's being used on a project, you know, and is working adequately, is where the delay is coming from. But the follow-up report will continue to provide you with progress updates on that. You'll be able to see the original time frame that we allocated to it, and then in addition the number of times that that's rolled over, so that should give you a bit more assurance in terms of resolving those.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Go back to my question. Page 22.
Yeah, I'm there.
Sorry, page 22. The recovery and write-off of outstanding debt. Just a couple of questions. Now, is this debt that is owed to NNDC for council tax, rents, fees, etc.? And does it have any relevance to any debt that NNDC owe a third party?
So this is for sundry debts, so the collection of debt, and that's what the recommendations relate to in that regard, yes.
Okay. Page 27. Is that you? Under training,
Yes.
it says, a record of training received by each officer and training needs to be maintained. Is that not picked up? And I believe all officers and everybody has an annual review. Is it not picked up then on what training they have or need?
Yeah, so for that particular area, I think when it comes to training, certainly for calls that you're receiving from customers, you'd expect a little bit more of an enhanced process there. So what we know the team do is listen in on recorded calls, suggest improvements, etc. So there may be training issues that come out of that. So a plan needs to be developed, and yes, it would be discussed as part of one-to-ones and the performance review as well. But we felt that that could be enhanced ever so slightly there.
So are you saying at the moment that's not necessarily happening?
I think it's happening, but in terms of documenting it and looking at the progress and making sure that it's kept up to date, that's where the weakness is.
Okay, and I just have one more, which is a slight caution on my part. Page 44. It's a statement at the bottom which says, other points noted. The council is in the process of transitioning to a new environmental health system called Assure. The work has been in progress since 2018, and there has been a number of difficulties with the implementations of the new system. I must be honest, I've written the word dread because of the systems we've had with planning and everything else. Can you give us some assurance on this, and how comfortable are you that it's going to be completed? 2018 seems a long time away.
Yeah, it does. And it's why we've added it as another point to note. I think it's a particular sticking point, and I don't have a fresh update for you in terms of where we are with that, but we can certainly circulate that for members if they would find that useful.
Please, I think they probably would be useful if people want that. Okay, I have no other questions. Anybody got any? Harry, you're fine. Everybody's okay. Okay, so we are asked to note the report, which we have done. Thank you very much. Okay, item number 8 is the internal audit recommendations. Hi.
Hello again. Okay, report number 2. You receive this now at every single audit committee. I think we used to do it every 6 monthly, but it's on the agenda every time now. And this will help us to get those historical recommendations down, because we did have quite a high number. The team of management have been working really hard with us to get some of these signed off. And as you'll see from Appendix 1 on page 54, we've had quite a few complete from 30th of November to 25th of February. So this is clearly a positive direction of travel, but there's an increased focus, I would say, on resolving these in time for year end. We still have some work to do. We've still got quite a number outstanding, but as mentioned in the previous agenda item, we've added that box in there. So on page 55, you'll see the due date, the revised date that we've got now, and then the number of times that this has been revised. And that gives you a little bit more of an indication as to how delayed and how many delays we've faced in getting this resolved. We're being very pragmatic with officers to see if there's any way to close down the recommendation based on the original risk that's been raised. But at this point in time, these are the sticking points, and these are the ones that remain outstanding. So I don't think we've got access to some of the officers that are responsible for these management comments today, but more than happy to take any comments away and feed those back as part of the process. But this is the latest position for you today.
Lovely, thank you for that. You say that you feel that some of these have been speeded up and get them done because of the year end. Obviously, they want to get them done. Or is it the thought of appearing in front of this committee and explaining why they haven't been done that is is also a driving factor.
I'm sure that helps, yes.
Thank you. Okay. Anybody else got any other questions? Saul?
Thanks, John. Faye, I just wondered if you could give us the benefit of your expertise. Is this a reasonable number of outstanding issues still to be resolved, given the size of the authority and the nature of the work we do?
Senior management are very committed to getting this number down. It is on the large side in terms of the historical ones, and that's why we need to work really hard on getting this to a much more manageable number, and particularly the historical ones. So we'll focus first of all on any that are urgent and important, because they're the highest priority, and we've seen a lot of movement in them in terms of closing them down, so it's really good. But we just need to keep up the momentum and get those historical ones resolved. I think we'll be in a much better place. The processes that have been put in place with internal audit working and with Linda and CDU and the performance team are now starting to really embed and work well, and we're seeing that demonstrated by the number that we've been able to close. So it's a work in progress. It's not where we'd like it to be, but senior management have really, grappled with this, and we should see it improve over the coming months.
That's reassuring, and we're obviously the very positive direction of travel. Thank you.
Just a quick one, Faye, if I may. There are some actions in here which either had a part one, I think, if you look on page 58, which is was the 28th of February. Then we've got one which is the end of this month, and on the preceding page we've got two which are the end of this month. Do we know whether they're on track or not? Because obviously they're imminent.
Yeah, those seem a little bit out of date now that we're in March. I think we need to watch that. So the paper deadlines for when we pull this together and when we request updates from people, I think they certainly were hoping to have that resolved by this point. So we need a fresh update on those particular points. If they're not complete, then again, we're going to need an update as to why. But yeah, I would hope that anything marked as 28th of February is now resolved and closed down. But I don't have that information here today, unfortunately.
I'll wait till next time.
Okay. Anybody else? Are we content with that? So on item 8, we are asked to note the management action, which we have done. Thank you very much for that. Okay, move on. Item number 9 is the strategic and annual internal audit plans, and it's Faye.
Okay, this audit report gives you the proposed plan of work for 22-23. We've also got a 3-year plan that is drafted for each indication of where coverage might be required over the coming years, but this will be subject to change this time next year. What we like to do is sit down with all assistant directors and with management and discuss projects.
Sorry, Faye, could you just turn on your microphone?
Hand it off, sorry. We like to discuss projects and key risks, and also the strategic objectives of the council for the year ahead. We then look at assurances that we've been able to give in previous years, and look outwardly to any external risks that we think the council may be exposed to over the coming years, and that allows us to pull together a plan of work that will provide coverage over key risks, and that will provide the assurances that you need as committee that the governance, risk management and control framework is operating adequately. So there's a few formalities in this report. It's quite lengthy, but the internal audit charter has been approved last year, so we don't need to bring it back to you this year, thankfully. The internal audit strategy has been updated to reflect the results of the procurement exercise, which has been a success. So we've got a new contract ready to go 1st of April. And it also highlights, you may remember Erica attending the previous meeting, we've got a little bit more support from the internal audit team perspective in managing the contract. So we've got that succession planning route now as well. So nothing really changed in there that I need to draw your attention to other than those 2 points. I think the main element of this report to look at is the annual internal audit plan for the year ahead. So each individual area is being given a number of days, it's being given a quarter from which we want to complete the work. And I think as committee members, we'd really value your thoughts on whether there's anything in there that you were expecting to see that isn't. and just give us some comfort that this plan gives you the assurances that you're going to need for the year ahead. So if you head straight to page 75, Appendix 3, I think that's certainly where I'm happy to answer any questions about our coverage for the year ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody straight away got any comments? Just want to have a quick look through it again if you remind yourselves. That's from page 74 onwards. Obviously, if anyone's got any comments beforehand on the other pages, please say so. But I think it's pretty clear and easy to understand in which way that we can see this and drive it forward. Will this be, this will be ongoing all the time, obviously, and we will see action taken on these and various dates changed, etc., etc.
Yeah, so the next stage is for us to pull, we've got the plan of work for the year ahead, and then we provide you with updates on progress on delivering those days in the progress report. So this is almost like the start of the year. This is what we're going to do, and then those progress reports provide you with the assurance that we're getting it done, essentially. But yeah, we just want to make sure that the coverage that we're providing for 22-23 is covering those key risks that you see in the strategic risk register. And that's what we've tried to do when pulling all of the information together and discussing it with everyone.
Yes, because obviously there's going to be, in this period of time, some things you can't plan. Yeah. No matter how good you are, you don't have that crystal ball. We sense that at the moment. So I think we have to be, there has to be an element of flexibility, that there are, as long as we have reasons as to why something isn't achieved on the time or something, I think we're more than happy with that. We can understand that. I think it's trying to explain exactly why that we're going to do it. Okay, anybody got any questions anywhere? Christopher, please.
I just a really quick question. Is there any sort of set patterns the way you actually do the audit? I mean, if you look, I just pick out one, key controls and assurance. Do you do it every 2 years, every 3 years? What's the pattern?
So what we like to do with key controls and assurance is, yeah, the financial ones are a little bit different. So they're done, a deep dive into the financial area is done every other year, but we always provide coverage on financial controls with the key controls work. So we take a proportion of each area and provide a smaller amount of assurance and then do a deep dive on every other year. But for some of the other areas, it is, you know, if you've got corporate audits and annual opinion audits like procurement, for example, or health and safety or anything regulatory, we try to get to them at least once within the 3-year window. And then everything else is driven by risk. So our risk assessment, the risk assessment done by senior management as well. And it's not an exact science, but it gives us a framework for where we feel that it will be required. And just as the chair said, if anything changes, or any risks bubble up in year and we need to provide some coverage, we've got that flexibility to either swap things around or add additional resources if needed. So it's a plan, but it certainly can be subject to change based on the needs of the council.
Okay. The microphone on helps. Okay, we are asked to recommend that the committee notes and approves. Do we need a vote on that, Matt?
Yeah, if we could have a formal vote, please, Chair.
Can we do all three together, A, B and C? Are we happy to do that? So this is to, we recommend that the committee, we note and approve this plan that has been put forward. Can I have a show of hands, please, for approval?
Do we have a proposer and a seconder? Sorry, Chair.
Okay, sorry. Proposer? Peter Fisher, seconder, Saul. And a show of hands, please. That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Okay, item number 10. The Governance, Risk and Audit Committee's self-assessment. Okay, Faye, do you want to give us an intro on this, please?
Yeah, this is where I sit back in my seat and go, over to you. So I facilitate this self-assessment exercise, but really it's for me to jot down how you feel you're doing as a committee and whether you feel that there are any improvement points to make. I've provided the prior year's results so we can have a look over that, and there was a couple of action points coming out of that. mainly around the council's and other members' understanding of the role and purpose of the committee, and skills and assessment, skills and knowledge. So just making sure that all members at the committee have got the skills that they need to undertake the role. But I think just have a look over the appendix, and I'll let you drive the conversation, and if we need to make any amendments or changes to it, then I'll take those away and bring back the results in a report form for next time.
Okay, thank you. I know you were saying that if the committee members need to be comfortable that they are able to participate, understand, and be part of this. Is there any member, without causing embarrassment, who feels that maybe that more training is needed, more advice should be given? Should these be a bit more detailed in some of the programs that we have? Or are you generally comfortable that you can sit in a committee meeting for a couple of hours and understand majority of it? You're never going to understand all of it, I can't, but at least understand the majority of what is being discussed. I mean, are we generally all comfortable with that? Silence.
I think we are.
Yes.
I'm speaking on behalf of everyone. Sorry, Christopher. Cut you off. And I personally certainly feel comfortable if I don't understand in asking questions during a meeting. So that's a real positive.
That's good.
Mm.
That's good. Okay. John, put mine in a second. Sorry.
Just on a personal basis, yes, I feel perfectly comfortable, and I think I understand the majority of what's being given to me. As Storm said, if we don't, we can ask. But
Yeah.
I do think this is one of the really key committees of the council. If this doesn't work, then it exposes the council quite markedly. So I do think that the membership of the meeting, the committee, does need to give, all group leaders need to give a lot of thought as to who they point to these committees. But from a personal point of view,
I think that's an interesting point, actually, Christopher, that it is a really important committee, and whether that is appreciated and known more widely by members, actually, that might be an issue.
But we know how important it is.
Well,
That's
of course.
the main thing.
I mean, the most important committee.
Is this form fairly generic to all authorities? It is. So you've got some comparisons in which some of them work. And is the size of this committee the average size that you would expect?
I would say so, and we have the advantage of having done this exercise across all of the other councils that we work with, and understanding some of the other techniques that they employ, particularly around making sure all members are aware. People have come up with ideas like a members bulletin or leaflet. I know leaflets are probably a bit out of date now because we're not working with paper as much anymore, but just a bit more information out there about what you've been involved in, and how to approach you if they have any concerns over risk, so that you can feed them back. I think it's worked quite well elsewhere, and I'm not sure that we have done that before. So that's just an idea to perhaps consider, but I'll continue to circulate the skills and knowledge matrix, I think, on an annual basis.
Yeah.
So if there are any training needs coming up that you think of, you can contact us and we'll try and book something in. Yeah.
Matt, sorry, you want to?
Yeah, I was just going to note that we do the for both audit committee and overview and scrutiny, we do an annual report that goes to council. And we did put a lot of effort into those last year, and I think they've significantly improved to highlight the work of the committee, the importance of it. And I think that will be very important when it comes to council in the summer ahead, to highlight the additional work that's been done by the committee this year.
Okay, that's fine. Looking through the matrix, I mean, most of the, I appreciate it's last year, and I don't think a huge amount has changed, apart from the fact we probably had a lot more online meetings, which we hadn't anticipated. And I think it is fair to say we had a higher attendance when they were online. But that's acceptable, and I think all committees would probably say that. We don't have a joint system where they can do both, but at least we know it, people were participating in that. The ones we've ticked, and we will, I think, are comfortable to keep with the yeses. A couple of sort of partly, which I think the committee probably addresses, that are the arrangements in place to support the committee with briefings and training. I mean, does anybody feel that, Saul?
Well, I was going to say, I think the arrangements are in place should we need briefings and training. So I would say that was a yes. Because I think if we need them, then they are provided for us. I think.
Note that we did arrange training earlier in the
Yeah.
municipal year, and Faye provided that. It wasn't particularly well attended, but then it's a small committee, so.
Yeah, no, that's fine. It's not the quantity, it's the quality. So that's right. So do you want to move that to a yes?
Yeah, I think we can definitely move that to a yes if everyone's in agreement.
Okay, that's a good point. Number 15, has the membership of the committee been assessed against the core knowledge and skills framework and found to be satisfactory? Now, this is what you do every year. You send out your...
Yeah, so by way of assessment, if we circulate it and people come back to confirm that they're happy, and it isn't, you know, have you got lots of financial qualifications? It's, do you understand the council? Are you comfortable with the knowledge needed to participate in the meeting in that way? You know, it's not about technical knowledge as such. So I think if I circulate it and we get a confirmation that nobody's got any training needs, then that ticks that off as well.
I think the only note of caution would be if you tick everything as a yes, you can only go downwards afterwards. So just be a little bit careful that we, you know, we can blow our own trumpet, but we have to be very cautious of the fact there's always something else that one can sort of maybe strive for. But I think you're right. Once you've done that assessment, we can look at that.
Yeah, I mean, that might be an area. So on the page afterwards, it goes into a little bit more detail, and then you're asked to assess yourself on a scale from 1 to 5, and you do have a few 4s in there. So there may be some areas that actually this year you feel that you've operated in a stronger manner, and we can propose to move those to a 5 or move things down if you want. But yeah, that's an area where potentially you could build in some improvements.
Okay, well, I think generally we've discussed, and you know, you've got the notes that you're going to review. We can change one, and I think we're all in agreement with that. And then wait for the matrix about people's qualifications, etc., and their ability. The committee hasn't changed a great deal, which is good in some ways. So the members here, apart from obviously Paul, but your skills and knowledge are well known, so that's fine. But yeah, I think we do have a good core. We're able to call upon good substitutes, which is always important with this kind of small committee, that the people that are here are comfortable with what they're understanding. So yeah, we can always look for more if we really need them, but I think at the moment they're quite comfortable. Okay, so we discussed it, we've reviewed it, and we've approved it. Okay, Matt? Thank you very much. Okay, item number 11 is our favourite one, the corporate risk register. Over to you, Mr. Ellis.
Thank you, Chair. Morning, members. I'll just give Faye 5 minutes to rest her voice, I think. I'll just run through some of the key issues that I've raised in this update. I suppose one of the particularly significant emerging positions is around Ukraine and Russia. So that is something that we are keeping a close eye on. I think one of the risks we're trying to manage currently is around the potential for a fuel shortage. So in terms of our key contract with the waste contract, it's a position we are looking to try and manage. And just as an update for the committee, the landlord for the Serco contract has been out this morning, and they have been discussing the positioning of a surplus tank so that they can store additional fuel at the depot. So that would help to mitigate and manage any shortage in the future. But we are keeping an eye on that position in terms of all of our operational side of things, just to make sure we can, wherever possible, mitigate any of the risks that are coming forward. Just in terms of the update that's provided for you today, some of the key issues we have now had, as you'll all be aware, we had the budget approved on the 23rd of February, so that's very positive. That's all in place now. Procurement, we continue to keep an eye on that. Again, whether this current position impacts any further on the availability of goods and the price impact that might have, we will continue to review. So it's something that's very difficult for us to control. There are instances where we are trying to procure goods early where we can because the markets seem to be all going in the wrong direction. So we are looking to get certain materials to support projects as soon as we can to help mitigate against that. In terms of the operational side of things, again, we have seen fairly low COVID figures for the district compared with the rest of the county and nationally. So that's a positive position for us. And I don't think we have seen anywhere near the level of staff absences that were previously predicted. So that's a good position for us to be in. Strategically, we are, or Steve particularly is leading and working very hard on looking at the levelling up agenda and the government's white paper. We are waiting to hear about the Shared Prosperity Fund and what the allocation for the authority will be, but that is expected within the next month or so, I believe. And then we've got some work to do in the summer around a strategy for what we do with that funding. Another positive is that the net zero strategy was also approved at full council the other evening. So that's now in place, and we now need to work through that action plan to try and deliver that agenda moving forward. In terms of the energy rebate, you probably all have seen on the news when that was first announced. So that is a payment that we will be making through our council tax system. People do need to apply for that, and then they will be paid if they are eligible. So that covers bands A to D in terms of council tax. And I believe the target for trying to make those payments is in April. Just touching on the comments that Faye made earlier, I think personally we're in a very, very strong position as an authority to be able to deliver on some of these initiatives now because of the work we've done on the grants and because of those processes we've got in place. I think that is very positive. So the teams across the authority have done a lot of work in that particular area. So I think that should be a good process that should be well managed. Overall, just to mention, I will be doing an update to the framework and the policy in June for you all to consider. And you probably will all have seen the email that Christopher sent me around making some improvements to the risk register. And when we first moved to in-phase and we first came up with the new reports, we did sort of say it would be an ongoing conversation to see what information was required, if there was too much detail, if you wanted more information provided. So Christopher's given me a number of things to think about, and I've said what I'll do between now and the next meeting is to review all of that, review the current register, look at best practice, because ultimately the information that's contained within these reports needs to support decision making. It needs to be helpful for the committee. It needs to be helpful for management. So it is work in progress. We are trying to use in-phase as much as possible now because that system is there to support this. So I will be sharing those drafts with you ahead of the next meeting, but I would expect the information provided to look slightly different and to pick up on some of those areas that Christopher has raised with us. So I'll leave it there for now. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Duncan. Just before I throw it out for anybody any questions, I'm just going to ask Chief Executive, is there any other additions that you want to add to the report that Duncan's just given? Your name was mentioned a couple of times.
No, I think it's a very comprehensive summary of the position as at the present time. So obviously the situation with the Ukraine and Russian situation is dynamic, and we are receiving guidance about what that means in terms of contingency planning, both in terms of fuel supply availability, cost increases in terms of commodities, which could impact on the council's forward work programme in the way that Duncan has detailed in this report, and an emerging situation around the UK taking refugees where there is no, as yet, detailed county position, but we stand ready and waiting with county partners through their people from abroad's team to respond to that challenge in the coming days and weeks. In terms of the position with the white paper, it was published on the 2nd of February as detailed here. Norfolk is one of the 9 authority areas invited to have a conversation with the government over the next 6 to 9 months about a county deal, which would see additional resources and powers come into the county. Those conversations are ongoing at a district leaders level, and Councillor Tim Adams is involved in those discussions along with myself on behalf of this authority. Duncan's referred in this paper to the UK Shared Prosperity Fund. That money is an allocation. It's not competitive. The 400 million pounds, sorry, in 22-23 is for the whole of England. So I don't think there can be a huge expectation that we will get many millions of pounds coming into North Norfolk or Norfolk indeed as a whole, probably between 3 and 5 million pound when you look at the allocation across England as a whole. But we will get an allocation to North Norfolk. The money will be pledged over 3 years, and as is referred here, we need to prepare an investment strategy, we believe, by the end of June, and that will be signed off, we expect, by government by the end of September. So we're already planning resources as a corporate leadership team to undertake that piece of work. But at the present time, we haven't received our allocation, and we haven't received detailed guidance or criteria on the form that local investment strategy should be. So that is work in hand, but it is something that we are developing as on a weekly basis when corporate leadership team meets, in terms of how that will be resourced and signed off by Cabinet or full council in the coming weeks and months. The situation with regards, as say, Ukraine is dynamic and shifting very rapidly. We believe we've only got one contract where there is payment made ultimately to a Russian business, and that is through Gazprom for a 3-year contract to supply gas, which was a consortium or framework type contract rather than a contract that we'd entered into directly ourselves. And Duncan and others are taking advice on whether it's possible for us to suspend or curtail that contract. And that work is ongoing. There's been email exchanges about that this morning. So I don't believe there's any other exposure that we have. And Duncan has briefed Cabinet on that several times in the last week or so as the situation has emerged around our wider investment portfolio and whether we're exposed there. I hope that's helpful.
Lovely. Thank you very much. That's very useful. Okay, open to the floor. Any questions for anybody? Start with Paul, please.
Thank you, Chair. Page 101, the R008 loss of information status. Could I be assured that we are as secure as we could possibly be against cyber attack, given that is a potential risk from the current crisis? Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I mean, the formal emails that we had through a couple of weeks ago about some of these things, when I spoke to Sean about them, he said we had already implemented all of those improvements before we were made aware at that level. So I think he is absolutely on that, Paul. I think that's one of his key priorities.
That's good to know. Thank you.
I'm just wondering, just a little bit of silver lining. I noticed that EY have pulled out of all Russian work. Does that mean they will be having more available staff to look after our external audit? Because they don't seem to be staffing very well up to now. So yeah, I'm just hoping that's the case. And also, on a more serious note, Bacton strategically has become very much more important to this country. So I take it we are involved in some discussions about protection, etc.
We are in ongoing discussions with partners at Bacton Gas Terminal around its role and contribution in terms of energy security and transition to net zero. Those conversations are ongoing, haven't changed in the light of the developments in the last 14 days. Clearly, the facility is able to import and export gas, subject to UK reserves being able to meet those demands. I think in recent times the flow has largely been towards the UK, but I believe the Prime Minister is looking at an energy security strategy or statement in the coming days, and I would anticipate that Bacton will feature in that in terms of its future importance.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks, Duncan, and the team for the corporate risk register and the updates. It's really useful. I'm just wondering, in terms of when the update is made, so that's 31st of January, and obviously we're now second week of March, and you know, whether that's quite, you're getting sort of 5-6 weeks there in between, whether it is possible, and I do appreciate the amount of work that goes into these documents, whether that we might have a document that is updated closer to this meeting, and I look at page 110. So we're talking there about the environmental charter, which obviously the draft, the net zero strategy, which was a draft but now isn't a draft because we voted it through at full council on the 23rd of Feb. So that might then, I assume, take out that risk that the council fails to take into account changing environmental and social needs, because we have taken that into account because we passed the net zero strategy. So that would probably affect that red rating. Might it be possible for us to have a risk register that was more sort of closely in line with the dates of meetings, or is that unreasonable? Thank you.
No, I think in terms of the update, I think that the date, the 31st of January, at the top of the paper is slightly misleading, because when I work with Helen to try and get these updates as up to date as possible before we have to send the papers out for the committee cycle. So from memory, and Matt might correct me if I'm wrong, I think we were updating and provided this a couple of weeks prior, but I think it was just prior to full council, so I wasn't able to then say it had been approved. So it's not quite, because it looks at the moment like it was done 5 or 6 weeks ago, and actually it is more current than that, but I think the system puts that date on. And we do have a much more vigorous process in terms of scrutiny and discussion as officers before we present these reports. So it's a standing item now on the CLT, Corporate Leadership Team agenda, so that we get an opportunity to discuss this before it comes to the committee. And it also goes through the management team as well, so that people can feed in, challenge and input into it. So I think it's a more vigorous and robust process than we've had before. But yes, we do try and make sure that it is as up to date as possible.
Thank you. I did notice in the overview that there was reference to things that had happened in early February. So I kind of knew it wasn't quite late January. But I think the point about that, the net zero strategy, that might change the red rating there possibly. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm just going to take the opportunity now to get Helen. She's put her hand up. She obviously wants to defend her case.
Not at all. Not at all. I'm just following up on what Duncan said. The January date there denotes that the information was put in after the 31st of January, so during February. So the oldest information would be the 1st of February. So it's and many of those things were being put in the 2nd and 3rd weeks of February. So they are mostly as up to date as we can make them within the confines of publishing for the agenda.
Thank you. Yeah, I suppose if that was made a bit clearer, it might help if that was ever looked at externally. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Helen. Thank you. Anybody else? Any other questions for Duncan on his risk register report? So we're asked to review and just to note the content of that report. Thank you. Right, item number 12, the procurement register. That's down to Cara, monitoring officer, please.
Thank you. Under the Constitution, I'm required to provide you with a quarterly update in regard to procurement exemptions, and it's a report again this time. I just mentioned there's a slight typo at the bottom where I've written November 2022, should be 21.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for that. We're asked just to note that comment. Anybody got no other question? No. Okay, thank you very much. Item 13 is the GRAC update and actions, monitoring progress. Down to Matt, please.
The only thing to update there is just that there was a recommendation there, number 40, from minute number 45, to recommend full council and NDC opt in to the PSAA joint procurement exercise, which was done. I don't know if there's any more progress to be kind of reported on that from Duncan, but as far as I'm aware, every other action is complete. He's nodding, so yes, I assume it's progressing as expected.
Okay. Any comments? Anybody got any clarification? Okay, so we monitor the progress on that one. Thank you for that. Item number 14 is the work program pages.
Yep, so the only thing to note there is, as was mentioned at the start of the meeting, there is a provisional meeting due to take place later this month, where hopefully, whilst we're awaiting confirmation, we will be looking at the audit results report from EY, and the final statement of accounts and the letter of representation. So we will confirm that as soon as we possibly can.
Thank you. Anybody got any question, any comment? Okay, thank you for that. We reviewed it. That's fine. Item number 15, which is any exclusions of the press and public, which I don't think we need to. Finish time is 10:58. And thank you very much.